Thomas H. Burgoyne, an astrologer and founder of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor, was born April 14, 1855, and grew up in his native Scotland. He was a psychic and claimed that as a child he came into contact with the Brotherhood of Light, a group of discarnate advanced beings who attempt to guide the destiny of mankind. Today, that group continues as the Church of Light. Burgoyne moved to the United States around 1880, and soon afterward his writings began to appear in various periodicals. He was brought into contact with one Norman Astley of Carmel, California, who also claimed to be in contact with the Brotherhood of Light. Astley suggested that Burgoyne write a series of lessons to introduce the Brotherhood's teachings to the public, and Burgoyne accepted Astley's hospitality at Carmel while he worked on the lessons. They were published in 1889 as The Light of Egypt. The writing of these lessons occasioned the establishment of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor as an esoteric occult order and outer expression of the Brotherhood of Light. The Hermetic Brotherhood was structured with three leaders, a seer, a scribe secretary, and an astrologer, and Burgoyne became the scribe. As Burgoyne understood it, the Brotherhood of Light was an occult order formed to oppose the dominant religious powers of the day in ancient Egypt. As the members died, they continued the Brotherhood from their new plane of being. Burgoyne wrote several more books, including The Language of the Stars, 1892, Celestial Dynamics, 1896, and a second volume of The Light of Egypt in 1900. He died in March 1894 in Humboldt County, California, still a relatively young man, before the last two were published. Henry and Belle Wagner continued his work. Henry Wagner owned the Astral Philosophical Publishing House in Denver, Colorado, which published Burgoyne's books. Belle M. Wagner succeeded Burgoyne as the scribe of the Hermetic Brotherhood. Burgoyne began investigating the hidden realms of occult force at least 20 years prior to the year 1881. This resulted in a series of lessons on a variety of topics on the occult forces of nature that became a treatise on Hermetic philosophy as taught by the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor. Burgoyne sought to explain the true spiritual connection between God and man, the soul and the stars, and to reveal the truth about karma and reincarnation. The first edition of this book was published in 1889 and went through 5 later editions that were published by Henry Wagner, M.D., under the name of the Astral Philosophical Publishing Company of Denver, Colorado. Burgoyne discovered during his 20 years of investigation, through what he called personal intercourse with the exalted minds of the Brethren of Light, that long ago the Orient lost the use of the true spiritual compass of the soul, as well as its true secrets. These Brethren of Light, according to Burgoyne, have been and still are traveling the descending arc of their racial cycle, while simultaneously what he terms the Western race is slowly working its way upward through matter upon the ascending arc. The preface to the book states that in December 1880, the Western race reached the equator of its mental and spiritual development, coinciding with the sun's departure from the sign of Pisces and entrance into the sign of Aquarius. This resulted in an awakening of the intellectual, religious, and spiritual senses and was a period of change and mental crisis for the Western race. The book is dedicated to the budding spirituality of the Occident and the rising genius of the Western race. Part 1 of the book is called The Science of the Soul, and Part 2 is called The Science of the Stars. In Part 1 on the Science of the Soul, Burgoyne writes about what he terms the Hermetic Constitution of Man. He says the spirit monad of man is born of the activity of what he calls the divine ego. All things originate as the objective outcome of the divine and subjective idea. The human ego arises from a differentiated atom of diffusive, formless spirit called the celestial harmony. The formless spirit was brought into being through the angelic activities of parental souls who are representative of love and wisdom, intelligence and truth. Burgoyne writes extensively about reincarnation and points out that it is not only humankind that evolves through rebirth. He says that a deeper probing reveals countless realms of beings equally immortal as man that go through such cyclic rounds, and that this is the nature of universal law. These realms are stepping stones for humankind on the journey towards the infinite. On the physical level, man appears as a specimen of mechanical skill and architectural beauty, because each organic part is exquisitely formed and in perfect unison one with another, and each with the whole. This reveals just how the human organism is but the finite expression of the unknown infinite. Burgoyne tells us that this is true on the external plane, but on the internal plane as well. In the external plane, the human organism is expressed as bone, flesh, blood, and hair. However, on the internal plane, man expresses himself quite differently in terms of what Burgoyne calls the Hermetic Constitution. What are the elements of this Hermetic Constitution? It is made up of 7 parts. These are defined by Burgoyne as a physical form, an electro-vital body, an astral form, an animal soul, a spiritual body, a divine soul, and a pure spirit entity. The physical form of man has 4 components. These are blood, bones, flesh, and hair. The form as a whole is composed of an infinite number of separate organic cells, and each of these cells constitutes a miniature system of its own. Burgoyne says this mini-system has been formed by the crystallization of many forces around a living spirit entity. The electro-vital body is made up of pale phosphorescent light. It encloses a glittering skeletal framework of electric fire. This purely electromagnetic form is inseparable from the physical body during life. It cannot exist without the active presence of the physical form. Burgoyne says the pale phosphorescent light presents a perfect outline portrait of the physical body, while the fiery skeleton shows the interior electro-nervous system of the human organism. A trained spiritual seer is able to perceive the branches of the nervous system, which spread out in every direction from the great trunk lines of the brain and spinal column. It resembles an infinitude of fine pencil rays of light darting in straight lines with rapidity out in every direction. The astral body is made up of the magnetic light evolved by the planet. This light is also termed astral light. Burgoyne tells us that this light is generated from the universal ether of space and is the soul of the material planet. The astral body presents a perfect mirror image of the external personality of the human being. It is easily separable from the physical organism and constitutes the true or real personality or persona or appearance assumed by the soul during its incarnation in the physical realm. This form is under the direct control of the mental being that animates it. It can, under certain circumstances, assume temporarily any ideal image or form within the grasp of the mind controlling it. Burgoyne says that when the astral double is absent from the physical body can still perform any activity it is engaged in a purely automatic or mechanical manner. Astral projection is the term used to describe an out-of-body experience whereby the astral form leaves the physical body to travel to other places and other planes. Often during this experience, the physical body is asleep, but the mind is tuned in and is able to pull away from the unconscious or sleeping body. During astral projection, the astral body leaves the physical body, and this enables the consciousness to enter astral planes. Astral planes refer to a realm of existence, also known as a higher dimension or spirit realm. This place operates at a higher frequency than the three-dimensional earth plane. It is a place built up of layers, and there are lower astral planes and higher astral planes to be explored by those who can make the leap. The yogi Paramahansa Yogananda spoke of astral planes and said this: "The heavenly realm of light and indestructible life, the realm of vibratory life energy hidden behind the veil of the gross material universe. From the astral world we come at birth, and there we shall return at death." Someone asked me why we should try to connect with the astral world now. To this I reply, because that is where you will realize the freedom of your true nature. You were there as a soul cloaked in an astral form to start with, and because you are not there now and have lost that memory is why all your misery persists. The astral form is susceptible to pain or injury while absent from the physical form. It is especially susceptible to magical operations, and Burgoyne states that 9/10 of all black magical injuries are operated by means of or upon this ethereal form. Burgoyne describes the animal soul as formless and the part of the animating entity incarnated within the microcosm which constitutes the lower arc of the universe. The animal soul is the seat of the selfish, brutish desires of the human. They are lower than the human sphere, but are evolving upward through it from the animal. Its activities are strictly confined to the astral and material planes. The spiritual body is ethereal in nature. According to Burgoyne, in the majority of the population, it is either latent or in the embryonic stage. The spiritual body constitutes the human form in the higher sphere of the soul world where man becomes angel. It is the white robe and golden crown that are given to the elect, written about in the text of the Apocalypse of St. John. In other words, it is the soul's expression of the heavenly raiment of the purified man. The divine soul is that section of the entity incarnated within the microcosm which constitutes the higher arc of the universe. This soul, like the lower one, is also formless. Burgoyne tells us it can be traced only in the higher lines of the human countenance. It is the seat of the good, unselfish, noble aspirations, and also those actions which spring forth simultaneously to aid the weak, the suffering and afflicted, unassociated with any interested motives of self. The last division of the human constitution is the pure spirit entity itself. It is called the divine ego. According to Burgoyne, the Hermetic Constitution of Man consists of 3 active principles, which all emanate from the one universal principle, and 4 secondary reactions. He says this constitution corresponds to the trinity of the Gnostics and the spiritualists. This trinity consists of body, soul, and spirit. This also corresponds to the quaternary or fourfold constitution of the Kabbalists and the Greek speculators on Egyptian theosophy, who taught that there is a body, an astral or magnetic body, the animal soul, and the divine soul. Burgoyne briefly sketches the Hermetic Constitution as follows. Man consists of 3 duads and the ego, a total of 7, which stand in relation of refraction and reflection to each other. In the first duad, we have the physical body, reflection, and the electromagnetic form, refraction. In the second duad, we have the astral body and the animal soul. In the third duad is the spiritual form and the divine soul. Lastly is the true ego, which controls each of the 3 duads and constitutes the fourfold microcosm of the Hermetic schools. At death, we lose the physical body and the electromagnetic form. Then, as we progress through the sphere of purification in the soul states as a disembodied figure, the astral body and animal soul are gradually thrown off. Not separated, but gradually thrown off as they prepare to move forward upon their progressive journey. The unprepared atoms are liberated and sent forward while all gross matter is eliminated. The animal principles are no portion of the purified soul, and these are dispersed within the cause world. Ultimately, nothing is left but the Trinity, the spiritual form, divine soul, and the true ego. The true ego does not become a part of the duad until it has ascended beyond these soul spheres. Burgoyne notes that at this point, male is the positive or male spirit of the ego, woman the negative or female. The true angel requires the spiritual union of both male and female principles. Burgoyne summarizes his thoughts about the Hermetic Constitution of Man by noting that, quote, a man may be a perfect intellectual genius upon the physical plane and at the same time be a veritable idiot in a spiritual sense. Very many intellectuals are standing before the world today and being accepted as the grand repositories of absolute knowledge because most of mankind are wholly engrossed in worldly affairs and are spiritually asleep. And remember, the book was published in 1889. He concludes with this statement. The higher the soul evolves, the more spiritual the understanding becomes, until perfect rapport with the divine spirit is attained. This is the true at-one-ment, man made perfect.